Marcella here again for Small Business Digest. You know, resilience is a word that's often overused, but it's also critical. Ask any small business owner or manager or president. With us today is Marsha Huber. She's here to talk about resilience and a little bit more about small business. Marsha, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Marcia, first, tell us a little bit about your own personal background, then about your group, and finally
Mhm.
about your report and how people can get it.
Sure, that'd be fantastic. I'll start with a little background on myself. Um, I have been, I had been an accounting professor.
Marcia, you're coming in and out for some
Oh,
reason.
okay, let me not move. Let me not move. Okay, so I am Director of Research at the Institute of Management Accountants, also IMA. And my background is that for 30 years prior to coming to the IMA, I was an accounting professor and CPA. So over that period of time, I might call myself an eclectic lifetime learner, and I worked on a few degrees. One on positive psychology, one on creative leadership and thinking, and another, believe it or not, journalism,
Hmm.
so that I could share research and information with small businesses like your viewers. And recently I wrote a report for the IMA with the Small Business Committee, which is a committee comprised of maybe 15 different business people from different aspects. They could be a controller at a company, they could be a CFO, they could be a CPA, or what we call a CMA. So our organization, the Institute of Management Accountants, the IMA, administers this exam called the CMA exam, which is an excellent exam for accountants within organizations. And we are a global organization with approximately 140,000 members. Um,
Oh, Marcia, we asked about you, not
oh,
about your organization, but
I
go.
thought you were asking in a sequence. I'm sorry, like the organization report. Okay, back to me. Okay, back to
You have a terrific organization. Now tell us
okay.
a little bit about how this report that that you developed with these people.
Okay, sure. So the Small Business Committee uh, goal is to inform small businesses from their expertise in accounting and finance. So they began putting together some vignettes of what they did during COVID, how they addressed different issues. And I took those vignettes as well as information from the Small Business Development Center at Youngstown State University and put together the report with models, recommendations, ideas on how companies could facilitate when we might consider out of the box thinking to address challenges.
Hmm. Okay. Now, having said that, and before we get into the report, how can people find this report?
Yes, it is at the IMA website. They can put in imanet.org. That's imanet.org. In the search, type in small business resilience, and the report will come up. And that's small business resilience.
Well, do me a favor, since I can't. How do you spell resilience?
Ah, okay. RESILIENCE. Let me double check. You got me on a spot. Yes. RESILIENCE.
Okay, keep that handy because I'll ask you about it again.
Okay.
Well, but anyway, having said that, Marcia, what are the two or three top line things that you can tell us?
Yes, I would be happy to do that. That's a great question. So one aspect of the report is to see what companies did to thrive. And we found three things. Number one, visionary leadership. Number two, business focus. And number 3 is a people-centric culture, whether it's cultivating those things, utilizing those things, and the report gets into those items. And I can go further, but I don't know how far you would like me to go.
Well, let's start with visionary leadership. What do you mean by that?
So visionary leadership. Okay, so let's start this way. This point. A lot of companies, when they have problems, they focus on the problems rather than having this visionary aspect. So instead of focusing on the problem, I would hope that your listeners might consider taking a little more abstract approach. Now, what do I mean by abstract? What I mean by abstract is spending a little time reflecting and reimagining what they want. Instead of focusing on the problem, reimagine or imagine or envision what you want and start clarifying that vision. And once you can clarify and look at that vision, that will direct you in a different way. May I offer you an example?
Please.
Yeah, I'll just use something simple. Simple as not having enough time. Okay, not having enough time to do things. That's a pretty common problem, right? So instead of focusing on what do I do, and I got to change my schedule, and all these things, instead of focusing on this problem, you might focus on something more abstract, visionary, such as how might I find the time to do the things I love? So there's a difference there. You're not pounding against the problem. You're like, oh, how might I find time to do the things I love? That's what we consider visioning. Visioning something else, clarifying what we really want instead of fighting the problem all the time. And this has been utilized at many companies. There's a technique called creative problem solving that has worked. It takes about 2 hours. That works to take companies from focusing on problems to visioning what they want and how to get there. But I'm just talking about that step of it as far as visionary leadership.
Well, I'm sorry. What came to mind is, you remember the old saying, when you're up to your butt in alligators, it's hard to imagine the original purpose was to drain the swamp. I just like you to comment on that, because you're saying pull back and be a visionary, but most audience say they don't have time for it, but yet you're saying they should. Am I hearing you correctly?
I believe you are hearing me correctly. Because so all the alligators might be biting at you and snapping at you, but it might be, let's jump out of the swamp for a while and reflect on how we may, let's say, get through the swamp or drain the swamp. But we got to get out of the swamp for a few minutes and do some planning, because we seem to be stuck in the swamp. And so, yes, I am saying that it doesn't take that much time to do this. It's not like you have to spend weeks reflecting. You can do this, like I said, in about 2 hours to reflect, revision, start doing some thinking about what you want, and then decide on what steps do we need to take to get there, instead of just focusing on, oh, these alligators just keep biting me.
Well, we may come back to that, but let's go to the second of these top lines, which
Okay.
is
Business focus.
okay. What do you mean by that?
Well, of course, this is what a lot of people are starting at. Okay, they're just starting on what do we need to do now, rather than this visioning process. But yes, it is important to focus on our business goals. And this is a place where accountants can help as well. I'm definitely going to promote accountants, because this is what our organization does. And we have these experts. But this is where you bring several people to the table, not just the C-suite, but bring other individuals that have their skill sets that can bring it and collaborate to think about, once this vision is set, then reevaluation occurs. You can do some brainstorming, reinventing yourself. And in this report, we have stories of the management accountants and what their businesses did during this time, which you would probably love to read. I would say get the report and read some of those stories and how companies did reinvent themselves, how they did close the gaps and things like that. And that took taking a step back again. And what can we do to change things?
Is there any charge for this report?
No,
Okay.
no charge. It's free to anyone who wants to read it.
Okay. So let's go on to the third one.
Yes. People-centric culture. I think at this time when so many people have stress, and let me put it this way, somebody might think, how's this different than before? And why is it still continuing? And why are my employees anxious? And why do we have the great resignation? And all these questions I used to teach. Why are my students so stressed out? Why does it seem like they can't handle things as well as they could before? Why so much anxiety? Okay, I'm going to pose this to you. Let's say you have a cup. You have a cup, and we start every day with a cup, and we can handle so much in this cup. It starts empty, and then we fill it up. What if the cup, you don't start with a new cup every day? You start a cup that's already 25% full because of all the stress of anxiety. So that only gives us 75% that we might have normally, been fine. We used to have 100%, but now we're starting with 75%. People could be pushed over the edge. This is actually a theoretical model, a personal energy model. We have so many resources and we have demands. And if we can't meet those demands, and I think COVID, wherever it is, wherever you are, how it's affecting your business, how it's affected culture, how your new work life, even if you might be used to your new work life, it's still different. That it's easier for us to go over the edge. That's why those who care about their employees, connecting with them as well as their customers, everybody's stressed. That's why the people-centric culture is so important. It's a time to reconnect with each other, new employees, and recharging ourselves. So many people talk about nowadays work-life integration, work-life balance. I actually think we need some work-life separation. When our business came into our homes, there's benefits, right? We don't have commuting time. We say, and people like that. But also it's in our homes. And now we don't have real lines of separation. And so from my interviews with people, what I'm hearing from some people is they don't want this, but it's such a big thing in the press right now, work-life integration. I went on a workshop for women the other day, not in my organization, and everyone's bought into it. And I'm like, I'm not hearing that from every woman. So these are things, that's why having a people-centric culture is so important, and having empathy.
I'm going to throw a curve at you because this morning I was reading Dagwood, the comic, which I've been reading for 60 odd years. But Dagwood hasn't changed. He's still afraid of his boss. He's still well, Daisy 20 years ago started a catering business, but yet he's survived and now almost 90 years with a boss that doesn't care about him. Okay, but and I guess I'm sitting here saying, you know, uh, I had a boss once said, "Did you sleep last night? Then you had enough time. Yes, then you had enough time to finish the report." Yet you're saying you've got to separate the two.
Not necessarily. It's just like some people want that and some people don't. I'm just countering where everything's going at the moment. Um, but at least at this point, focusing on people, whatever that may mean. And some organizations, that's very organic. It's organic on how companies deal with their people. But because I believe the latest report I read, 50% of people leaving their jobs don't even have another job lined up. They're not going to be patient. Dagwood may have been patient, you know, got used to a boss like that, but today's generation won't. And the number one concern among small businesses today, I just read this report this morning, is finding and retaining talent. So the talent pool is a little different than it has been in the past. I'm part of the Great Resignation. I left in August and joined the IMA. I left academia.
Well, some people say you were smart, but that's another story. But let's go. I just happened to have my prior interview someone who said that 1/3 of all American men are not uh, employed in a job in which they can report income, which surprised me.
So basically, you're saying they're cheating. They're not reporting their income.
They're not working,
Oh, they're
or
not working.
they're not working, which when I questioned on him, he showed me the statistics that I can as hearsay say to you. It seems to me that my generation, and I'm a lot older than you, um, we were raised that you worked hard, and this generation seems to say, Wait a second, I want to work, but I also want to play."
No, I don't necessarily think that's it. For some, perhaps. I think people are looking for meaningful work. Meaningful work. And of course, how does someone find meaning if you're what we call an essential worker and you're working at a restaurant?
Hmm.
It's possible. There's the recrafting of jobs. There's the recognizing the invisible worker. There's a lot of things in the literature. And interestingly, of the 4 million who left the workforce in, I believe, February, 1 million were professionals.
Yes.
One and people aren't putting up. I'll just say frankly, they're not putting up the crap.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of things going on. There's meaning, there's money, there's inflation now, the pressure of that. There's so many things going on. So, like I said before, people do not have the energy to deal with all these stressful situations at one time. And some people, yeah, they have left the workforce. I have one friend, professor, a year before she came up for tenure, which is a big deal. She quit. She just quit in December, mid-December. She just quit. She just didn't want to do it anymore. And her spouse works, but I've seen people do this, and we may even know people.
Pardon my cynical, but did she quit because she was fearful that she was not going to make tenure? But that's
No, I think she quit work. It was dealt with more family issues, COVID. Um, there's a lot of concern. She had lots of concerns for her children, how to teach them properly. And she asked for leave. She asked for leave for a year and they wouldn't give it to her. And so she just quit.
Hmm.
And now she's doing part-time work remote online for a company.
Well, let's get back to your study. I took you off the study, and I apologize for that. But you're such an interesting guest that I couldn't resist.
Okay.
We have a few minutes left.
Okay.
What from your now? First, tell us how people can get their copy of the report.
One more time. Go to
No, 2 more times at least.
2 more times. IMAnet.org. That is the website. IMAnet.org. When you go in the search, put in small business resilience. Resilience is spelled RESILIENCE. At that point, you will see it pop up. I just did it, but it was actually the second document. But look for the report name. It's called Thriving Amidst Challenges, a Guide to Small Business Resilience.
So now you have the next 4 or 5 minutes without interruption. What would you like to discuss about it?
I would like to say this. I would like to see that my goal for this report, along with the Small Business Committee at the IMA, is to help small businesses take a proactive approach rather than a reactive approach to addressing problems. I also might say it's kind of like, instead of climbing mountains, building mountains. Okay, we can climb a mountain and struggle and climb. But if we build them, that means we build them for us. And to do that, there is a process. I'm just going to talk about the process, which I mentioned earlier. Clarifying what your challenge is. And you can have more than one, but just doing this one at a time, clarifying that challenge. Then ideate your solutions. That means a diverge. Don't have people in a room and fight people of different skill sets, let's say including your accountants, invite them in, present with the challenge, and say, let's brainstorm this. But don't do one round of brainstorming. That's not enough. The first round, you're just going to get all the stuff you've already thought about that maybe has worked, hasn't worked. You need to go 2 or 3 steps into, actually 3, into brainstorming and using some techniques. And actually, we will have a publication coming out in July addressing that, by the way, on how to do those techniques. I call it effective extreme brainstorming. And once you brainstorm those ideas, get as many as you can, shoot for maybe 50. I'm telling you, set a high goal, not just, oh, we got 10, let's go. 50, 100. One company brainstormed 900 ideas. They brought the whole company in to come up with some new products. So that's called brainstorming ideation. Once you do that, then you pick the ones into action. Now, this is where you bring your critical mindset. Now you pick the ones that you think will work, combine them, mix them around, and then say, okay, let's now evaluate the pros and cons of these. And how can we make these ideas feasible? How can we help these ideas happen? What are things we can do now? What are things we can do maybe in 30, 60 days? And then come up with an action plan. Okay, a lot of brainstorming sessions, they don't get to any action plan. Everybody leaves and that was nice. You're going to develop the ideas, the best ideas, and then you're going to set an action plan. What can we do now? What can we do in 30, 60 days? What can we do in 60 to 90 days? And don't lose your ideas, because you might want to come back to them when you have time. And I've helped organizations do this in the past as well. So the process works. And I hope you read our report and the vignettes that are just so well written by our small business committee members at the IMA.
And how can people get the report?
Yes, they go to our website, imanet.org. Put in search small business resilience, RESILIENCE. You should see our report come up in the list. The report name is Thriving Amidst Challenges, a Guide to Small Business Resilience.
Okay, you got 1 more minute left. What else would you like to say?
I would like to say that we're all facing challenges. And it affects us in many different ways, whether you understand or don't understand other people. And I think one part of this process to be successful is to take time out, to gain perspective, to do some thinking, use some empathy, and start thinking outside the box and learning techniques that will help your company do it well.
Well, Karen Huber, thank you so much today. It's been a really interesting time together, and I hope people read your report. I know I'm going to. Thank you.
Thank you so much.